Hey guys, my name is Ty Lewis and I hope that you're having an amazing day. So I wanted to talk about just something briefly and something that we all do as Christians when we become familiar with what we feel like God is doing in our lives. When we feel like we know the way because we've been there before or we've taken that road before. And what we have to realize as believers is that God navigates differently. And even though he's done something in our life one way doesn't mean that he's going to do it again. And just because we are familiar with a route doesn't mean that that same route is going to give us access to what God is doing in our lives. So a couple of weeks ago, I had to take my daughter to Children's Healthcare of Atlanta because she had to film. And if you're familiar with Children's Healthcare of Atlanta, you will know that the only way to get there is an access road off of the highway, and it's only one way. So we got there a little early. We sat in the parking lot and we were like, we're hungry. Let's go to Chick-fil-A because every believer eats Chick-fil-A. So I put it in my GPS and started the navigation route, and it only took 3 minutes. Got to Chick-fil-A, ordered our food, ate the greatest French fries ever, and said, okay, let's head back to the hospital because it's almost time to film. Even though I knew the way, I still put the address in. The address started taking me another route, and it was taking me a route that was longer than the one I just came from. So I said, I'm not going to listen to the GPS. I'm going to go my own way, the way that I remember, the route that I'm familiar with. And so I turned the car out of Chick-fil-A and I started to go the route that I was familiar with. And the GPS rerouted me. And I said, wait a minute, I'm going the correct way. I know directions. And it rerouted me again. And every time the GPS rerouted me, the time started to go up. And it started to become longer than the route that the GPS intended for me to go. So I said, okay, let me do this over. Let me turn around. And I turned around and I started to go the other way. I didn't want to go that way because, again, the other way was shorter. This way put me on a highway and I didn't feel like that again. But one thing I remembered just like that is that I had to go the other way because that way was the only way that would grant me access. See, I wanted to choose a route that I was familiar with, but the route that the GPS was taking me was the route that I would gain access to the road. I failed to remember that that road was only one way, and that one way would be the way that would allow me access to the hospital. How many of you know that even though we are familiar with routes and familiar with things that we've done in our lives, that sometimes there is a better way? And if we submit to the GPS and God's way and his will and what he is calling us to do, even though we feel like we know another way, that his way is better. And if we stop being so stubborn and saying, I'm going the other way because I know this route is easier, it's shorter. And the other way may be a little longer. It may be a little more difficult. And you may not be familiar with that way, or you may not even want to go that way. But understanding this, we may not understand the way that God is navigating us or taking us, but he knows what's best. See, he knew that if I went the other way, that I wouldn't be able to access the road. I didn't remember that. That was something that I didn't know. The only thing that I knew was that this way was shorter, that I had just come from this way, that I wanted to take that road. And God was saying, no, I want to take you along the path that's going to give you access. And even though that way may be a little longer and a little harder, it's still one way. And that one way is not your way, but it's God's way. And so we have to remember to submit to his will. We have to remember to open up our ears so that we can hear what he is saying. And we have to remember to allow him to navigate our lives so that we're not going the wrong way, but that we're going his way. Always remember that familiarity will not grant access, especially if we're doing it our way. Have a winning day, and I hope today is kind to you.